All right, we are officially live. It is showtime, folks. What is going on, everyone? And welcome to a brand new exclusive edition of 27 Outs right here on YouTube. As always, I, of course, am Ivan alongside Stefan. And you guys heard me use the word exclusive, right? That's right. We have Heath Bell, former three-time All-Star, 2009 National League saves leader, here with us tonight. Heath, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you guys doing?
I'm
Good.
good. We're good, man. We're happy to have you. I'd be lying to you if I said my phone wasn't blowing up since they heard we got you. Like everybody's, we can't believe you got this interview. So, it's been busy for us around here. But let's start this interview like this, because you're at Mets fantasy camp right now.
Yep.
What is that experience like being a big leaguer, seeing what you call regular people, regular Joes like me and Ivan on the field with, big leaguers such as yourself and others?
Well, a bunch of ex-coaches are out here. We're helping the guys, the campers, do their best and not pull hammies, and trying to teach them how to pitch a little bit and hit, because they play 8 games in 5 days. And for the players, it's really cool because your teammates and your friends you don't always live next to, so you get to see those guys. There's probably 24 to 28 ex players here, and because
Mm.
there's 12 teams and there's two slash maybe three to a team. And then yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and the campers are basically like my distant cousins. My aunt, some are like some uncles or some grandfathers, because there's some 70-year-olds out here.
So
Wow.
speaking of the Mets, Heath, you of course, made your debut with the team. But at any point, did you ever see yourself, going back to the Mets as you obviously are now? Like, was it something that just made sense when you finally started to be a part of their fantasy camp?
You mean when I was playing?
Yes, because
Yes.
you debuted
So
with them and then now you're working with them, post your
Yeah.
So
baseball
when I
career.
was playing, I wanted to finish my career with the Mets. I really did. It just didn't work out that way. And then, I retired so I could stay home with my kids. Well, see
Mm.
my kids. They were going into high school, because I had kids before I got to the big leagues. And so it just didn't work out that way. And then the last couple of years, since I've been doing fantasy camp, I did it a couple of years before COVID, and then I've been doing it ever since. I'm trying to kind of get back into coaching, and it's just kind of hard. I mean, I pushed hard for Mets, because my whole minor league career was with the Mets, and every time we come here to Port St. Lucie, it's just all the memories of me and struggling through the minor leagues and then make it to the big leagues. And my whole life, I thought I was in baseball, I thought I was going to do it with the Mets,
Mm.
but it just didn't turn out that way. And they traded me off to San Diego, and I did well out there. And but this is kind of like a homecoming for me.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully a job opens up somewhere. I've had some other opportunities. I just haven't, guess, found the right opportunity with the right club yet.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was going to ask you, do you miss being on the field? Do you miss being in the trenches, so to speak, coaching now? Obviously, since your playing days are over, but I know coaching brings that same level of, we're chasing after something. We're trying to win games and possibly win a championship. So, would you have a specific role in mind that you want to get into on a big league club, or it really doesn't matter what role you're in, just as long as you're in the big leagues again?
Well, you know what? I really think I can manage a team or be in the front office with a team, but I'm a realistic guy. I've been away from the game for a while because I was raising my kids. They're kind of older now. And I really want to be back in, some sort of baseball. So the last year or so, I've been telling everybody, hey, I'll be in scouting. I'll go to the minor leagues. I'll show you my worth, show you how hard I can work and how good I am, because I joke around with some coaches. And I had an interview with Tampa Bay just, a few days ago. And I said, the best players aren't usually the best coaches. And I said, I wasn't good when I was in Little League in high school, and I had to work really hard to become good. And then I became good. So it's kind of unique. I remember what it was like not to be good, what to be an okay player. And then, like, when I signed with the Mets, I was a fill-in guy. There was 14 guys to rookie ball. You need 25 at the time. And they were just signing guys from out of college for $500. and I happen to be one of them. And my coaches, Bill Champion and Tim Foley, saw something in me and kind of stuck their neck out for me in spring training the next year. And eventually, I just proved it on the field and kept doing better than guys that they drafted for, a couple million here and a couple million there. And they kept going, why does this kid keep doing better? So, and then I just worked my way up. So I think I've coached in high school. I've coached in college. Basically, I was never the head coach. I was always a volunteer because, I get the MO of, hey, the other coaches are intimidated, because I know a lot. I probably know more about hitting than most high school hitting coaches and some college hitting coaches. I'm not even a hitter, but I studied hitters to get them out. So I could see the little hitches that they do. And, this guy's a pull guy, this guy's an oppo guy, how to pitch to him. And then pitching is my forte, as in, I can, teach, guys and help them with their mechanics and all this, but also with hitters, I can say, hey, this is what the pitcher's trying to do to you. So be ready for these certain kind of pitches. So I just kind of want to get back into pro ball because I really think I could help a club out. And then eventually, I'd like to get back up to the big leagues. But like I said, hey, if I got to start at ground bottom, that's fine. I did that in the minor leagues too.
Yeah. So speaking of going from from the bottom rather back up to the top, especially when it comes to you wanting to land something coaching wise. So I know you spoke about, shortly, you said that you wanted things to work well for the Mets, in terms of you being there with them. It just didn't turn out like that. But you then went on to play for the Padres, and you had a 5-year stretch where not many could argue where, it was you and some others who were at the top of the top when it came to relief pitching. Could you talk about like what those 5 years felt like, and also what felt different, what started to work too?
Well, here's the thing. Guys have to realize not every place is meant for you. Another place might be better. Grass isn't always greener on the other side. But I will say the Mets cared about the way I looked in a uniform. They didn't like the style of pitching. I kind of threw up in the zone. Where San Diego was, we don't care what you look like. We just care if you get the job done. And that's basically putting up a 0. So it kind of felt like okay, so it doesn't, as long as I put up zeros, nobody scores. You don't care how I do it. And they were like, yeah. So that was kind of the everybody asked like what happened in San Diego. And I was like, New York at the time, the coach, the pitching coach, the manager always cared about what I look like, and San Diego was like, we don't care what you look like. Just go get the job done. So it was refreshing where I could just be me and I could just pitch the best of my abilities. And I just kind of thrived, and it was nice. I mean, I was born in San Diego, didn't really grow up there, but I was born there. My dad was a Marine. And funny enough, he talked me out of becoming a Marine after high school and said, try baseball out. So I went to the local community college. So, I could have been a Marine easily, but just the 5 years there was a blessing. I really developed into a great pitcher / closer setup guy for Trevor Hoffman. That was kind of unique and fun. And like, I'll give you another tidbit. When I was with my last year with the Mets, Billy Wagner came to me and said he talked to the manager, and he told him, I go, hey, I think Heath could be a setup guy one day. And the manager told him, nah, he can't do that. So sometimes some guys can believe in you, some guys don't. Wow. There's 30 clubs out there, and that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
All right, so I gotta ask, because now my brain is working now. If my memory's correct, you left the Mets in 2007, correct?
Yeah, the off season of 6 and 7.
Off season of 6 and 7. So you were in between Willie Randolph and Jerry Manuel.
It was pretty much just Willie Randolph.
Really? Wow.
Art Howe was my first year.
Okay.
Willie Randolph took over the next 2 years, and then for some reason, I don't think Willie Randolph really cared for me. And then Rick Peterson was the pitching coach that not a lot of people liked. And I was a young guy just sitting there, and he would yell at always the young guy, and that was me for a while. And then I heard he yelled at the young guys after me. So,
all right, I got one follow up, because you said in San Diego, we just saw the Padres hire a pitching former pitcher as manager, former reliever as manager. So I know that got to give you some hope. Did you get involved in that process at all? Did anybody from the Padres contact you and say, Heath, we'd love to sit down and talk to you and tell us what you see, so to speak? Or
No,
was
not at all. I mean, I tried to get my agent to ask AJ Preller probably 4 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago, for an interview when when Jason Tingler got signed as the manager. So
Jace
that was
Tingler,
like
yeah.
so that was like 2 or 3 managers ago. They wouldn't even give me an interview, and
Wow.
I'm like, hey, just a phone interview. You could just be like, hey, so what do you think? Blah blah. We kind of want you to have some experience before we, go on. I respect that, but yeah, the end of my career, I even asked just to go to San Diego with AJ Preller when he got the job like 2 years later if I could sign with there, and I'd even go to the minor leagues. And he was like, "Nope, don't want you." So then I just kind of hung it up.
Wow.
That's unfortunate. You know why? And we just talked about this on our show the other day, Heath and Stefan. You remember this? Didn't they just spend like an entire day with like Albert Pujols, and they couldn't just give you maybe like an hour of their time?
So it's crazy because we just finished talking about. I just heard from somebody that close to the situation. They spent almost 10 hours with Albert, interviewing, going through the process, and it's like it's amazing how all these young guys getting managers jobs, even general manager jobs, and you're like, don't we value the guy that's been in the big leagues that got mud in his spike, so to speak, that can show these guys how to do this, especially when experience seems to be the one thing that's lacking in the game now? Would you agree with that?
I'd agree with it. I think the biggest case is, there's so much information, and it's almost like, and I'm not, I don't know if Albert's against cybermetrics and all the information, but it's almost like you have to be good buddies with the president of operations or GM for you to even get an opportunity. You might have a name like Albert. You spent all day. I mean, I really thought he was going to be the manager. So, and
So did we.
it kind of made sense. I'm not a big fan of a brand new manager, especially because the Padres are only like, I feel like a couple wins away from getting to the World Series or at least getting a chance. So it's strange, but it's one of those things that if the president of operations wants to heavily be involved, because I think the old school way of doing it was the GM, they have a new name, president of operations. He would put the team together and talk to the manager and then go, okay, here's your 25, 26 guys. Manager, it's your job when it's on the field. But now I feel like the general manager and the baseball operations / GM are all doing all of it. Every day they're talking about it. And I'm like, it's kind of hard. And I'm not saying the San Diego Padres is doing it, but I know a lot of clubs, it's kind of hard if you micromanage every single thing and you don't trust your guys to do their job. Then, why are you hiring them? Are you just hiring them to be puppets? So, but if you have everybody on the same page, you can trust them. And like you guys are talking and you might want to have a show about hitting and the other guy wants to talk about pitching, maybe you guys compromise somewhere. So, but I feel like sometimes clubs don't do that anymore.
So speaking of, you just mentioned, what things were like then versus now. How about, the game itself, what you actually see on the field, especially when it comes to pitching? I know now more than ever, we see guys throwing triple digits out of their sleep, Is there anything that you're noticing that's different in terms of what guys may be doing maybe behind the scenes in order to be able to pitch, at that type of velocity now?
Well, I think, you look back in the 80s and Nolan Ryan was the first one to really work out as a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think now with the nutritionists and guys working out at a young level and all these different, science things. I mean, I remember growing up in high school and college, the weighted balls, so many coaches were against it because you could hurt your arm, but a few people were for it. And now like everybody's for it, because they've seen, the stats, the information. Hey, we've been doing this for 10 years. Look, people have increased. So just when the data comes up and you can see that the data works, I feel like these guys, are throwing that much harder. But I feel like sometimes the lacking of knowing the game or the situation or pitching, everybody's trying to throw the hardest pitch possible. Well, I remember like Greg Maddox used to say, I want him to get him out in the first pitch. I don't, and if I threw 100, he asked me when he was with San Diego, he goes, Heath, you try to throw like your hardest every pitch? And I thought it was a trick question because he's kind of a funny guy. And I'm like, well, I try to throw hard every pitch, but I was hoping, one pitch is 94, next one's 98, then 96. And he's like, well, that's good because if you throw 100 miles an hour every pitch, the hitters are going to catch up. And I see that a lot with guys now that, it's max effort, this and that, where if you just took, like guys throwing 100 miles an hour, if you threw 95 and then you get 2 strikes on somebody, you don't have to throw a breaking ball. You can throw a pitch 100. So, or if you take a little bit off and, if you're throwing 100 miles an hour and you throw one at 95, they're going to be really early on the pitch. So it's the lack of pitching, the lack of understanding the situation. I feel like that's why guys get hurt all the time. Everybody's so worried about throwing so hard and having your spin rotation. You forget a little bit of the knowledge. Like, you guys watch, what teams do you guys watch a lot?
We watch everybody. So
okay, so you see guys in the outfield pull a card out, and you occasionally see a pitcher pull a card out and go, hey, what am I supposed to throw him? It's like, didn't you learn that, before the game?
So this is the thing that, because you asking us what we watch, we literally have these conversations during the season. And it pains me to say, why are you pulling the card out? You didn't go through this during the hitters meetings, during your pre-scout meeting before the game? Didn't the pitching coach tell you in this spot he likes to do this? It almost feels like it's information overload where they're not letting the pitchers and the players just go through the natural instinct of seeing what's out there on the field. Like when you watch a reliever now, can you kind of see like he's thinking out there? He's not throwing, he's thinking, as opposed to letting his body just go through the natural progression of trying to get a hitter out.
Well, you can kind of see who's pitching and who's throwing. Usually if you're doing really well, you're pitching. And if you're struggling, card comes out or something like that. But here's the other part. When I got called up, if you didn't know your scouting report, you weren't going to stay in the big leagues very long. So, it was like you have to know all that information. But here's the cool part. I've talked to some clubs, and there's some clubs, there's so much information, but they really say there's like 10 things you can focus on. They try to narrow it down just to 3 because these 3 are going to make you successful. And some clubs just give you all the information and say, figure it out. And some clubs actually say, okay, these 3 things are going to help you. So you don't need to know everything. You just need to focus on these 3 things. And I think those are the clubs that develop young talent and then they do really well.
So I have a question because we're in the off season now, and the off season is usually when you hear a lot about free agent signings or people moving around, going to different clubs. What was free agency like for you? Was it something that you enjoyed? Did you hate it? Were you like, all right, I'm over this after a little while? And my other question would be, why do you think it's so slow? What would you do as a player to try to speed up the process so guys know where they're going before we hit, let's say, Christmas, for example?
You go on vacation. That's what you do. On vacation where there's really not an internet, so you just can't sit and look at your phone all the time and look at all the trade rumors and all that stuff, or the free agent rumors. For me, it was a bumming time because I really wanted to stay in San Diego, but ownership didn't want me there. They didn't even offer me anything. And when I signed with the Marlins, then they came out and said they did offer me something, and it was not. They were kind of lying, and a lot of people are like, why'd you leave? They offered you what you wanted. And I'm like, they never did.
They offered it after I signed with the next team.
Well, and they didn't even offer because I called numerous times, and they did not respond to me. And my agent called, they didn't respond. And then for me, I signed at the winter meetings, and I knew a week before because the Marlins was trying to make a big splash with their new stadium. They signed me, Mark Burley, and Jose Reyes all at the winter
he
meetings.
was a part of that.
Oh,
you were
on that club. I remember they even had an offer out to Albert at that point, right? Like, Everybody thought Albert was gonna end up in Miami because they had all that money. They just moved into the new building. I remember that.
Yeah, so I was part of that too,
Wow.
so I kind of knew where I was going. I had some offers, some other places, but I really wanted a 3-year, and I basically talked to Jose Reyes because he was an old roommate of mine in the minor leagues, and it kind of seemed like, and then Hanley Ramirez, I played winter ball with for so many years. And it kind of was like, yeah, they're building something, they're going after a bunch of people. Maybe this is, it might take us a year or two to get there. And after they signed everybody, we were 4 games back before they started trading everybody. Then between that trade and the offseason, they trade like 16 guys. So I think the
Wow.
ownership, that's an old owner, but I think the ownership was, he just bought, he did all that to get people in the seats, and then was like, I never plan on paying you, so I'm just going to trade you guys off.
So it sounds
Right.
like that's what they're doing now because they're doing the same thing now.
With the
With
new, well, I think, the new ownership, I think you had Jeter come in, and I don't know exactly what Jeter did or whatnot, but then he's not a part of it.
yeah,
And I think they just hired the wrong people at the time, and now kind of go, hey, we don't need to go flashy. We don't need this. We need to build something. Because I really think if you want to build a good organization, you got to build a good farm system, and then build up your big league system with your young guys, and then try to keep them. But you got to trade them sometimes. But it's all about the draft and then developing and coaching. That's why I think it's really important for the minor league coaches to be ex-players and stuff, because you could teach the guys how pro ball is over college ball, and then how to really the grind is, and how to play basically every day of the week. Because I remember playing, so many guys on my team were like, man, why do we have to play catch every day? Why do we got to do this every day? And I'm like, didn't this what you wanted to do? But in college, we only played like 4 times. It was on the weekends. And then we got 2 days off. We should do that. And I'm like, this isn't football.
So Heath, I know you were just telling us about what things were like when you landed in Miami and the transition over there. But I gotta go back because I know this is something that people still ask you about to this day. But could you talk about the slide, the 2011 All-Star game? Was it planned? Was it something where maybe in the heat of the moment you said, you know what, freaking, I'm gonna slide?
It was all of the above. So here's the story. Here's the story. So if you guys remember, back that time, I think Jeter got hurt and was coming back, made the All-Star team, and Dustin Pedroia the same way. And it was always the Yankees Red Sox rival. That was like the big thing. And then a few years prior was in Milwaukee, the All-Star game, where it ended in a tie. And then fans were like, the players don't care. They're just, want their bonus. They don't, because I think Jeter and Dustin were basically saying, I'm not sure if we're going to fly all the way out to Arizona, because really my club is where it's important. And back then, you'd have to fly out Sunday. There was the home run derby on Monday. You had
and
the
then
game on
game's
Tuesday.
Yeah.
You had to fly back to your city or where you're going, and everybody played on Thursday. So if you went to the All-Star game, you never really had an off day. So back then it was a little bit different than the way it is now. So anyway, fans were just, kind of bummed or whatnot. So I was trying to bring fun back to the game. And one of my teammates' last name was Bass. And if you guys know Angels in the Outfield, the movie, the guy that slid and walks around the mound and gets lit up, his last name was Bass too. And it kind of rang a bell to me. My kids were watching it, and I was asking guys during batting practice, what should I do? And we were like, we had the Yoda backpacks instead of Gurley backpacks. And I was like, I'm going to put all-star stuff in a backpack and try to give it to fans. I ended up doing, but nobody had filmed that. And then I went, I'm going to slide. And they went, what? And I said, I gave you the outfit. And they're like, you're crazy. So anyway, I didn't tell anybody. And then during batting practice, I told Pablo Sandoval. And I was like, hey, Pop, get everybody out of the way. When I come in the game, I'm going to slide in. And he's like, what? And I'm like, don't tell anybody. This is going to be hilarious. And then this is what happened. Bochy gives this inspirational speech before the game. Like, guys, let's take this serious. we really, the Giants won the World Series last year because we had home field advantage. Home field advantage is a big thing, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking the whole game, I'm not doing it. I'm going to be serious. So I sprinted. I didn't see the camera guy behind me. If I did, I would have prime timed him and throw my arm up. And then if you watch the video, I never looked up until I hit the infield dirt. And that's usually what I did. And then as soon as I hit the infield dirt, I looked up, and that's when I slowed up. And then Pablo's told everybody, get out of the way, get out of the way. So then I speed up, and I was like, crap, got to do it now. So I speed up, slide, take a divot out, grab the ball from Boch. Boch is like, I got two of you crazy mothers. Yeah, Brian Wilson. Molina's busting up laughing. He's like, okay, let's go. So that's kind of how it all came about.
That's hilarious. I gotta ask, because you seem to have a great love of tacos.
Yeah,
where did the love of tacos come from, man?
I'd have to say my dad. My last name is Bell, and kids tried to tease me when I was young and say, "You're Taco Bell. You're Taco Bell." And you know what? They're tacos. I like them. So I mean,
nice. I have one final question, and Ivan, I'm not sure if you have any more. If you could give a message to young Heath Bell or any of the young kids out there that are watching this, that are trying to figure out, where do I fit? Do I want to chase this big league dream? I love baseball, but I don't know where I fit. What would your message be to them?
never give up on your dream, but also remember you're going to sacrifice things to give up on your dream. Because like I didn't go to many parties in high school. A girlfriend broke up with me because they were like, "You're always at the field." On Sundays, I was at the field by myself with a bucket of balls, throwing the ball, trying to hit the ball, and because nobody wanted to come, so I was going to go do it because I really wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and I wasn't going to give up on my dream. And even when it got really hard, I still didn't give up. And so just don't give up on your dreams, and just remember you're going to sacrifice things, but then again, you're going to gain things if you actually accomplish your dream. Because I will tell you, there's so many people I've met and said, yeah, I was really good, but, I met a girl and started to have a family, or, I had a kid, I needed to get a real job. Well, I didn't do all that. I said, you know what? I'm going to do all that when I get to the big leagues. I did it right before, but it was like, I'm not going to go looking for the other stuff. I'm just going to look for what my dream was, and become a Major League Baseball player. And if it happened to show up, great. But I'm not going to go look for it because I'm focused on one thing, and that was my dream.
Mm-hmm.
So two questions I have actually, and then I have nothing else. So first thing is, at what age did you know, like, I think I'm closer than I believe I could be when it comes to actually being, a Major League Baseball player?
It's kind of funny. So my dad, when he was alive, he used to tell this story. He goes, yeah, Heath he was like 5 or 6. He had a California Angel game. It was I guess LA of Anaheim now. He goes, Dad, I want to be on that field. I want to be a big league player. And he's like, cool, son. He goes, I want 50,000 people to cheer me or boo me. And my dad was like, he goes, why boo, son? He goes, because I'm playing for the other team and I'm beating them. So, honestly, that's kind of what I wanted to do my whole life. And I never, in junior high or high school career day, it was like, hey, what do you want to do? And I'm like, Major League player. That's nice, but what do you really want to do? Well, why can't I do that? Well, only 1% of the population makes it. Well, why can't I be that one? And so my whole life, I felt like I was going to make it, but I never knew that I was going to have a career or be an all-star. If I made it one day, hey, I accomplished my dream. And that's literally what I was trying to do. And at the time, I was a New York Met, going up and down for 3 years. And I got traded to San Diego. My wife at the time was telling me, hey, you need to quit. They say you suck. You're not that good. They want the guy that came with you. That was an ex-first rounder. So I made a bet with her. I basically said, if I don't become something this year, then I'll retire and give it up and go work at Home Depot or something. And she's so glad I didn't listen to her.
There you go.
All right, final question, Stephen. Feel free to wrap it up when I'm done, bro.
Yeah.
So Heath, we've talked about life after baseball. We've talked about your playing days. We've talked about, perhaps maybe coaching in the future. Maybe you'll be back at the big league level again. But I also know that you do some work with the Friar Territory network over on, Friar Territory. Could you talk about that? Very similar to what we do here. I know it's maybe a lot more professional on that side. But what's that like, working with them?
Well, it's fun. Yeah, I get to talk about baseball that I love to do because I watch a bunch of games. The only thing, the Friar Territory, we talk about the Padres and all the different situations and kind of try to get inside the clubhouse a little bit. My co-host, Kyle, is a beat writer, so he's there a lot. I go and watch the games on the road. I don't really go in the clubhouse as much anymore, but I can kind of relate what's going on or what guys think about. And, it's grueling sometimes, or, if a trade's coming up, is a new guy coming in, is not coming in. I like joking around and talking with the guys. We have some interviews, like we had Jake Cronenworth on, and I was telling him, say, hey, you were a closer back in college. Don't you think you could take over? If Robert Suarez leaves as a free agent, he was like, I don't know if I can do it. But I was like, why not? So I asked those questions because it's unique and fun. Where we just talk about stuff. It's not always, well, they're doing this and doing that, generic stuff, and I'll just throw something out there. They're like, what? So you just never know what's really going to come out of my mouth.
Hey man, we appreciate what came out of your mouth during this interview. It was very enlightening. It was also very humorous. Heath, thank you so much for your time. We took longer than we wanted,
That's
but
right.
thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we will definitely see you down the road. And we want to do this again, possibly during the season, depending on where the Padres are. If the Mets are having a good season, have you on, have your see your input and things like that. But we're gonna definitely do this again down the road.
Yeah, I love watching you guys. I see you all the time on YouTube and TikTok, so that's why I reached out to you guys. So it's fun listening to you guys too.
Oh, appreciate that,
Appreciate it.
Heath,
Thank
man.
you.
That means a lot, man. I wasn't expecting you to share that with us, but thank you.
That's
Appreciate
how we got contacted. I was like, well, I'm gonna message those guys because it seemed cool. So
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Appreciate the love. And listen, if you ever have any like former teammates that you want to introduce us to, or if they're looking to have a platform to tell their story or interview or just share their thoughts about the game, the door is always open. And we look forward to talking soon.
sounds good.